Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Faith, and thank you so much for watching. This is my May reading wrap up. I cannot believe it is already June. That is crazy. If you watch my May reading lineup where I will let a wheel choose my reads, you're probably wondering, Faith, did you get all those books off your TBR? And to that I say, yes, I did that to try and get books off my TBR that have been on there forever. So I am so pleased to tell you, I got 10 books off my physical TBR this month. You heard that? 10. I know. Right now you're like, Faith, oh my god, you had 66 books on your physical TBR and now you're down to 56. And to that I say, no, because I got 7 books this month. So I'm only down to 63. But, hear me out. 3 of the books I got, I did read this month. So those don't count, right? The other 4 were early birthday presents from my mom. So those don't count either. So when I said I was going on a book buying ban, I didn't break it. Okay, I did break it a little bit. I will do better next month, guys. I promise. I will do better next month. Listen, do I have another book coming on June 11th? That is irrelevant because it is releasing then. So again, one of my favorite authors, favorite book series, that don't count. So I'm really only going from 63 to 64. And will my first read of June be on my Kindle and not on my physical TBR? Yes, but that's because it's a book from an independent author. So I'm hoping I read it and I love it and then I can share it with you all and then we can all go support this independent artist. So if you're mad at me for reading that and it doesn't count on my physical TBR, you're saying you hate independent authors. That's crazy. But guys, seriously, I am going to try to get my physical TBR below 60 next month. Other than releasing 10, I promise you, I will not get any more books in June. Okay, but now let's get into the actual reading wrap up. It was a very up and down month. I have a new favorite book, which is incredible, but then I also had 2 DNFs, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. As always, there will be spoilers in this video, so I'm going to put timestamps of when I talk about each book in the caption so that you can avoid any spoilers. The first book that I read in May was King of Envy. 5 stars. I loved it. I love Vuck. I actually don't know if I'm saying that right because I feel like I saw Anna pronounce it a different way, but the whole time I read it, I pronounced it as Vuck, so I'm just gonna call him Vuck. I'm sorry if that is incorrect. I loved him. I loved Diana. From his first mention, I don't even remember which book it was. From his first mention, when it was like, he doesn't talk a lot, I knew he'd be my favorite book. I knew it. I love him. I love that this book was more action packed than the other ones. I feel like most romance books over 500 pages always have a chunk where they're just boring and nothing really happens. But with this book, I feel like that never happened. If it did, it lasted like 2 chapters max. I think Twisted Lies still might be my favorite Anna Huang book, but of the Kings of Sin, I'd say it's probably this one now. So yeah, 5 stars. Highly recommend. I loved this one. Then I had a pretty massive shift away from romance and I read Ted Bundy, Conversations with the Killer. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I try to be very conscious about the way that I consume true crime. I think it's very easy to do unethically. In terms of ethics in consuming true crime, I'm honestly not too sure which spectrum this would fall in because it doesn't really acknowledge the victims. It did exactly what it meant to do. It was Conversations with a Killer. It was these 2 guys interviewing Ted Bundy. That's exactly what this was. That is literally the entire book minus about 20 pages at the beginning. So I'm not going to say it's unethical. However, if you are very conscious of I want to consume true crime to learn about the victims or to honor the victims, this is not for you. I have not watched the Netflix documentary. I'm not sure if it's the exact same as this book. I don't know if the documentary explains the cases more. I don't know if it, tells you what actually happened, but this book literally is just these guys talking to Ted Bundy. I thought this was after he confessed, and it was not. So the entire thing is him denying that he did it. There's even a massive portion at the end where they're basically like, dude, we know you did it. You know you did it. Like, fess up. And he's like, I didn't do it. But if I did do it, this is how I would have done it. Oh, and whoever did do it, he probably did it like this. And he probably did this. And oh yeah, he probably did exactly this. It definitely gives you an insight into his brain and how absolutely insane and deranged he is. So if you're wanting to learn more about Ted Bundy, I do think this would be a good read. However, if you want to learn about the case itself, I would not recommend reading this. But yeah, overall, 4 stars. Definitely not the way I like to consume true crime. However, it did give a lot of insight into how insane this man is. Next, I read Hangman by Jack Heath. Honestly, I gave it a 3 stars, but I think I'm gonna rescind that and bump it down to 2.5. I did not like this book enough to read the second one, which unfortunately I have. However, that means 2 for 1. boom, knock 2 books off my TBR. It sucks that I didn't like it enough to read the second one, especially since I have it. However, I don't want to waste my time reading the second one if I didn't like the first one. I did like it enough to finish it. It was just weird. The writing style wasn't my favorite. It kind of was all over the place, especially chapter to chapter. Sometimes it didn't make sense how we got from the end of one to the beginning of another. It was kind of just a random skip that didn't really make sense to me. I also didn't like that the main character was a cannibal. If I knew that from the summary and knew that opening the book, I might have felt differently because I would have been expecting it. However, I just didn't like that. Going in, I also thought that he was an FBI agent, but apparently he's not. He's just an FBI consultant, which reading the summary again, it does say that. I guess I just didn't know what that meant, which is on me. Overall, it just wasn't really what I expected. Kind of a letdown in that department. In my opinion, I think this book could have benefited from a different summary, something that was more accurate to what the book is. I get that maybe the cannibal part he wanted to be a big reveal. However, that was revealed at the end of chapter 2, so it's not like it's something that we find out at the very end. You find it out right away. So that was just kind of weird to me to not include in the summary just because of how hit or miss that topic would be with some audiences. Like me, I did not like that. So I would have liked that to be included in the summary, but I didn't write it. I can't change it. So yeah, 2.5 stars. Honestly, I would not recommend it. And then we got what I am so proud to say is now my favorite book of all time, Jurassic Park. I could do an entire video on this one by itself. Oh my God, it was so good. If you know me, you know Jurassic Park is my favorite movie of all time. And I knew that this book was different from the movies. However, I didn't really know how different. This is a quick reminder that this video does contain spoilers. So if you don't want to know how it differs from the movie, I'd recommend skipping ahead. If you've read the movie and think you know what happens in the book, you don't. I can word for word quote that movie. I was not prepared for some of the stuff that happens in this book. Some people who die in the movie live in the book. Some people who die in the book live in the movie. The only thing I knew going in was that John Hammond dies in the book. That is it. That is the only thing I knew that was different. I didn't know anything that was the same. I actually have read the beginning before. I want to say I stopped around 140-ish. I'm not sure why, but I did decide to start over from page 1, and I'm actually really glad that I did. After finishing this book, I'm really confused how the second book happens. And I know that he didn't want to write a second book. He wanted it to just be this one. But the studio was like, dude, that first movie was a success. You need to write a second one. So he ended up doing it. With the movie, the second one works. But with this, it doesn't, because the end is completely different. That being said, I did read the summary of the second one, and it does say it's like something unexpected happens, which I'm assuming I know what the unexpected thing happens because it's like the only way for the second book to happen, assuming that it's like the movie / similar to the movie, you know. Okay, I've been trying to be vague, but I feel like I've been too vague. Ian dies. So how the heck do they have a second one? Because the second one is literally Ian. So I'm so confused. So I'm assuming the unexpected thing happens is that he's alive, but I don't know. So like, I really want to read that. This book is a massive critique on the commercialization of science, and I do think that that is something, especially in today's world, that everybody needs to be aware of and everyone should be conscious of. And I think this book did a fantastic job with that. I feel like if I went into any more detail about this book, I would be talking about it for way too long. So honestly, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I might do an entire separate video on it just because it was that good. This is now my favorite book of all time and my favorite movie of all time, which I love. Again, 5 stars. This book was incredible. I do think everybody should read it. So we went from that, which again, favorite book of all time now, to 5 Broken Blades by Corland. And I would like to apologize because in previous videos, I believe I pronounced it Maya, but now I see that it is Mai, so I apologize for that. Unfortunately, this book was a DNF for me. I didn't read enough to where I feel comfortable rating it. I think I only read the first 9 chapters. I didn't even make it to page 100. And unfortunately, again, I do have the second book for this one, so another 2 for 1 though. I'm getting 2 books off my TBR. With fantasy books, especially when it's the first book in the series, for me, it's really hard to understand when we're switching point of view so much. So I prefer when at least the first book in the series sticks to 1, maybe a couple more than 1 point of views, but 1 is just obviously going to be the easiest to understand. This one has 6, which was a lot. We didn't even get time to really sit with 1 at any time. It was immediately 1 chapter is this person, then this person, then this person, and it's not long chapters, they're short chapters. So I feel like the world building to me just wasn't there, and it was really confusing. And like I said, I only read the first 9 chapters, so I don't expect to know everything about the world in that time. However, I expect to know something, and I was just too confused to that point. Don't get me wrong, I have read fantasy books where there are multiple POVs. Like with Kingdom of Ash, we get so many different point of views. However, that's the last book in the series. We started the series with only a couple, and most of it from 1 person. So I think when you're doing a fantasy series, especially in the first book or 2, you need to have 1 or 2 main people so that you can establish the world better. That's just my opinion. Some people could read this and not be confused at all. Lucky you, I wish I could do that. And there are trigger warnings at the beginning of this book saying that there will be descriptions of sexual assault. And I guess I didn't really think that that would happen so fast or in as much detail. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying it, so I'm just going to say there is a grape scene within the first 5 chapters, and it's pretty descriptive. It doesn't happen all the way. It's more of an attempt. It being described in such detail that early on, it was too much for me. It made me pretty uncomfortable. So just be wary of that if you are thinking about reading it. I really wanted to like this book, but again, 5 Broken Blades, DNF, I would not recommend it. And then we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. 5 stars. I loved this book. Shout out Bestie Ellie for getting it for me. I'm sorry it took me so long to read it. I loved it. I loved that the end had a sort of double plot twist. The entire time I was like, Andy's not dead. She is not dead. She is alive somewhere. She is out there. So when it was revealed at the end that she was alive, I was like, duh, I knew it. I knew it. And then she went up there and she was like, it's not Andy. Truth be told, I was gagged. I was gagged. Genuinely did not expect that at all. Like, OMG. I did not expect that at all. But technically, I was wrong because Andy was dead. She was in, I forget what, like a septic tank or something. Throughout this book, I had so many different suspects, and I'm gonna be honest, I felt like it would be someone who we didn't expect. So my number one suspect throughout this entire book was Ravi. I don't even know why. There was just a couple times where he was doing something a little weird, and I was like, I feel like he'd be the least expected person. So I thought it was him. Him, Naomi, and Kara were my top 3 suspects for a lot of it. Mr. Ward was for a bit, and then he wasn't, and then he was again, and then, you know, we all know what happened with him. I was suspicious of her sister for a little bit, but only really at the beginning, not too much at the end. So that was kind of surprising to me. The dog dying, I texted Ellie and I was like, if this dog dies, I'm not finishing the book. And then he died. Are you kidding me? Holly Jackson, that was unnecessary. I know this is a trilogy though, so I'm kind of confused / curious where the next 2 books are going to go because she solved this murder. And as far as I know, everything that happened in this book is fully solved. So yeah, I'm curious what's going to happen in the next 2 books. So I'm very excited to read those. Again, 5 stars. I highly recommend this book. Sorry, because I guess if you just watched that and then I said I recommend it, you already know what happens because I literally told you. But yeah, I don't care. I recommend it. The next book we had was Consider Me, and I DNF'd this one. I did not like it at all. I actually did have the physical copy. However, I was gone when I finished A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and this is what I had on my Kindle. So I just started reading on my Kindle. So I never read the physical copy. Since I was reading it on my Kindle and I didn't like it, I did return the physical copy I had because the physical copy was unread, and I had only got it 2 weeks ago. So I went ahead and returned it. There were a lot of things that I didn't like about this book. In the first 11 chapters, 8 of them mentioned how itty bitty petite she was. If you know me, you know I hate that. I'm 5'9". I'm not gonna act like I'm, you know, extra tall, but it is tall. So it does bother me when it's constant, oh my god, you're so tiny, you're so tiny, you're so tiny. Because I feel like so many romance books have it these days. I'm like, tall girl representation, please. Which is another reason I loved King of Envy, because girl was 5'10". Loved that. It wasn't just even, oh, I'm so tiny, oh, I don't fit into this, oh, I can't reach. She has to do some like weird move to get up on the bar stool because she's too tiny to just sit on it, which actually I want to say is in chapter 2. So no, 9 of the first 11 chapters mention how itty bitty petite she is. And the first chapter didn't because he didn't know who she was. She wasn't even in the first chapter. And then the other chapter that didn't was him at Christmas with his mother and sister. So she was only mentioned once or twice and only in his brain. So that's why it wasn't mentioned in that one. So yeah, if you don't like that, I do not recommend this book at all. You will be so sick of it. That is probably one of the biggest reasons I DNF'd this book. Another reason was that I hate Insta love, and that is pretty much what this book was. He was obsessed with her from the beginning. She also liked him, but she was insecure about his other relationships. Totally understand that, girl. I don't want to be mean. However, she is a fictional character. So if you relate to her in real life, I'm sorry, this is not a personal attack at you. This is only this girl. She seemed very weak-minded in her ability to stay away from this man. Them having sex literally came out of nowhere. After they had sex, he referred to his penis as his sword of thunder. Yeah, I finished the chapter right before that, and I was like, you know what? I don't really like this, but I'm hoping it changes. I'm gonna tough it out. First page in that chapter, boom, sword of thunder. I stared at those words. I reread them, I think, 57 times because what? There's no way I read that. There is no way. He just called his penis his sword of thunder. He did. He did. I was like, I can't do this. I finished that chapter and that was it. That was it. I couldn't do it anymore. He wasn't even joking. He seriously referred to it as his sword of thunder. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it there. Consider Me by Becka Mack, I do not recommend. In the last book that I read in May, Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood, this was a 4-star for me. This was my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book. Oh, I hate to say it. After reading it, I 100% understand why she didn't really promote this book at all. She only posted about it a couple times. It's in her bio. I understand why she did that. I do. I like that she could acknowledge that the age gap was problematic. This was the first age gap romance that I read, and I don't think I'll read another. Actually, I take that back. I think Twisted Games is an age gap. However, that book isn't about the age gap, if that makes sense. This book is solely, the age gap is the central plot point, which I didn't like. I am not a fan of age gaps, unless it is me and Sebastian Stan, me and Andrew Garfield, me and Aaron Taylor Johnson, me and Chris Evans, me and Timothée Chalamet, me and like half the male celebrities on this planet. But that is irrelevant. If it's me and one of them, ignore it. That's fine. Other age gaps, I'm not really a fan of, guys. So reading this as my first age gap romance, as definitely something if I see, I probably will not read it. Honestly, this is like the first romance book that I've read where I genuinely did not know if they would get together at the end. That being said, if I remember correctly, and I'm 99% sure I do, to be classified as a romance book, it has to be a happy ending, as in the couple does end up together. But I was reading this and I was like, is this a romance book or is this a fiction book? If you like books where you genuinely aren't sure, I probably would recommend this to you. If you don't like age gap, I definitely would not recommend this to you. If this wasn't written by Ali Hazelwood and I read the description in the store, I would not have read it. I did only read this because it's Ali Hazelwood and I love Ali Hazelwood. At the end of the day, I still love her even after this book. Like I said, definitely my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book, but yeah. If you liked Not in Love, we do get some insight into Eli and Rue's relationship. This book is based around their wedding. This book also takes place within a week. There are some flashback scenes, however, the main storyline does take place within 7 days. It was an extremely slow burn in my opinion. I feel like Connor's character was slightly underdeveloped. Overall, it was a cute read. I don't know if I'd say I would recommend it, just because again, the age gap. Overall, 4 stars. If you like age gap romances, you probably would like it. If you don't read it. So those are all the books that I read and DNF'd in May. 10 books off my physical TBR, even though that only went down 3 because I did get 7 more. I'll do better in June, guys, I promise. I hope that you all had a great reading month in May. Feel free to tell me your opinions on these books in the comments if you've read them, or feel free to tell me books that you read in May that you would recommend, because listen, even though I've got those 63 books in my physical TBR, I'm always looking for more books to read. That being said, real quick before we wrap things up, please, all authors, please take like a year break from writing so that I can like catch up, because I have so many books and every day I see more books that I'm like, I have to read that. I have to read that. Guys, please. I want to read them all, but I simply don't have the time. So please, if everyone could just take like a year's pause so that I can catch up, that would be great. Obviously, that's a joke. You can keep writing, but please slow down so I can catch up. Please. That is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you had a fantastic reading month. I hope you have an even better one in June. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope your summer's going great. I hope it continues to go great or get better if it's not going great. Yeah. Love you guys. Bye.